You are now entering a dangerous liberty zone where God-given natural rights are held sacred and exercised. This is your warning. Tyranny, fascism, and censorship will not be tolerated. Ideas will be exchanged freely. Rigorous debate and open discourse is encouraged. If you are weak and your beliefs are fragile, you should leave now. Prepare yourself. We are now live on the Dangerous Liberty Podcast. All right, folks. Happy Monday out there, everybody. We have a special show. We don't normally do shows at 3 p.m., but here we are because we got a great guest, and I'm going to introduce him in just a moment. But I do want to say hi to everybody over in the chat. Thank you guys for showing up. There's a couple little things I want to cover as well before we get started. A little drama and controversy. I hate drama. I hate controversy, especially on our side, but I want to address some things and kind of let you guys know what's going on there. But before we get into all that, make sure you like, you subscribe. Down in the description below, there is a link if you want to become a member and support this channel. We really appreciate that. That goes a long way in being able to helping us do what we are able to do. Also, down in the description below are all the links to Joshua Carr's social media links. Make sure that you guys go follow him. He is a great social media personality. He's out there defending the truth. We need more people like him, so make sure you guys go support him. But I do want to address something that's kind of been going on, mainly on X. All right. And I'm just going to throw up this comment up here. Why did you cancel the Facts Me guy, Steven? All right. So I was made aware of this infighting kind of going on. Didn't really know what's going on. I've researched it a bit. I decided for right now to put a hold on that. I'm going to address this behind the scenes. That's how that should have been addressed to begin with. We do not have time for us to be bickering back and forth on our side of things. If somebody did something wrong, what we need to do is we need to address that behind the scenes, talk to people, make sure, look, none of us are perfect. We do things, we say things wrong. I think we should have some accountability on our side. I do think that we need to make sure that we are approaching everything that we do with integrity, and we do need to hold people accountable on our side. That being said, there is forgiveness and things can be fixed, because I do think that Stephen is an important voice on our side of things, and we are going to have him on. I wanted to address all of these different accusations against him directly. Right now, he seems to be off X. I'm not going to comment much more about this until I talk to him and talk to some of the other people involved. It's as simple as that. We don't have time for this. The reason that Republicans don't win elections or don't win them more than they do, and why we have all this infighting within the conservative party, is there's always this purity test. Folks, at the end of the day, it is always elections. Look, we have a two-party system. Whether you like it or not, whether you think it's a good idea or not, we have a two-party system. And all the infighting should occur during the primaries. And then after that, we come together and we win elections so that we can defeat the left. It is always going to be a matter of choosing between the lesser of evil. And it's not even close. It's not even close. You take some of the worst Republicans, Lindsey Graham. I'll take Lindsey Graham over Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, Kamala Harris, whoever it is. I will take him all day long. Do I think there should be some better candidates? Absolutely. But when we need to make sure that we're cohesive, because guess what? The candy cult and all of these people, they can go out there and lie time and time again. They can go to another country, and as far as I'm concerned, be committing treason. And guess what? Their people, doesn't matter. They will back them no matter what. They will make excuses for them no matter what. So again, what we're doing is we're going to address this behind the scenes the way it should be done, professionally, and giving people as much grace as possible. So that's where I stand on this. But without further ado, I want to go ahead and bring on Joshua Carr. Joshua, thank you for coming on. I've been following your content for the last couple months. You were out there speaking the truth. You were defending, and I think you and I both know this is not the most popular thing to do. It's definitely not the most, if you want to make money, if you want to get clicks and views, standing up for the truth isn't the way to do it. So if you will, just take a minute, introduce yourself to everybody and tell us. And I'm also very curious how you got started into social media.
Sure. Yeah. Well, thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here. I feel the same way about you. If you want to be in a lucrative business, go peddle conspiracy theories, because people want a good story at the end of the day. And unfortunately, telling the truth sometimes isn't necessarily the most interesting story, but it's the truth, and it makes us right with God. I started this about 3 years ago. I was in college at the time. At the time, I was coming off of, I think, what a lot of us felt was the problem, which was the wokeism brought on by BLM and COVID. And so if you look at my content from those early days, that's what I was talking about, especially with Biden being in office. But when Trump took office, especially as a second term president, you saw a very noticeable shift on the right where people were vying for what would be the post MAGA right. And I saw this happen maybe 8 months ago. And it was the same time, unfortunately, that Charlie Kirk was assassinated. And I realized I got to talk about the right as much as the left, because if I don't, and I don't call these people out, they are going to take over our movement. And unfortunately, we have seen that over the last few months. I do think there have been a lot of good people pushing back, and we're starting to see the conservative movement get on its correct footing for the first time in a few months. And I'm actually more optimistic about the midterms because of it. And to your point, I think we can come together after these primaries and hopefully win more than the incumbent party usually wins.
Yeah, I do. I think that there's this perception that that it's intentional. By the way, this false perception that we get on social media. And if you went to X right now and you started digging around in X and going through different timelines, you would have this idea that everyone supports Candace Owens. That anyone that thinks that, I don't know, the Fed slop, the official narrative is genuine and true, that like they are the loons. There's almost, truth has become the heterodoxy, and then this nonsense has become the orthodoxy. And then you also have where these woke right candidates seem like they're extremely popular on X. But what we see, especially since we just went through some primary elections, it couldn't be further from the truth. And I think this deception, and it's like a lot of the polls that we used to always see in an election, like we know that those aren't true. We know that Hillary Clinton isn't leading by 40 points or whatever it is. And then we get to the reality of it. And I was really curious to see, the Massey election, especially because I did not know. I was like, I want to see this. To me was kind of the barometer of trying to figure out the delta between what we see on social media and what reality plays out. And I mean, he just got his butt whooped, and I was really happy to see that. So, I think it's easy to get caught up in this perception that they're intentionally trying to create.
I completely agree. What happened, I think, is everyone got so fixated on how corrupt the mainstream media was. And we got so excited about alternative media like X, like, independent thinkers on YouTube, that we forgot that those people can do the same things that mainstream media does. And so I hate to say this, I really do, but I think the mainstream media and the alternative media is one and the same. You have the exact same ability to push propaganda on X that you do on MSNBC. And that's exactly what happens with these people. You've got James Fishback running for Florida governor right now, acting like he's going to get 55% of the vote. James Fishback will not get more than 20% of the vote. I would be shocked if he's in the teens. He's probably not even going to be in the teens, but maybe, just maybe, with all of the propaganda he's gotten from these creators like Nick Fuentes and Candace Owens, he might squeeze by. But there's no way he's going to beat Byron Donalds, who actually, and by the way, Byron Donalds is not even my favorite politician in the world, but way better than James Fishback. What Byron Donalds has is an endorsement from President Trump, an actual ground game, and a history in Congress, which, again, it's just way stronger than the alternative media talking heads, where it's like a million of the same people churning out the same things on X every day. They make themselves look like it's 100 million people, but it's maybe a million tops, and probably half, or if not more of them, are from Pakistan or Malaysia.
Yeah. And I think there's a clear, coordinated, and well-funded. I mean, we just had some numbers released the other day. It's like $1.5 billion that Russia is pushing toward influence operations. And you better believe most of that is being directed to the United States. And we'll get into some of the reasons behind that. But just this weekend, I was thinking about all this, and I actually just running it through Grok. I was like, hey, Grok, what percentage of Americans are regularly on X? And come to find out, it's less than 10%. And if we take like less than 10% that are on there, I think it said like once a week, much less the people that are on there incessantly and probably consume as much media as you and I do, we're probably down into like the 4 or 5% that are on there almost daily. And then you have to divide that pretty much in half, Democrats, Republicans. So now we're left with like 2%-ish of people that may be conservative or even woke right, can continue to, kind of push that they're conservative. So at the end of the day, the people that are actually pushing this, it's like 1.5 at tops, like
Yeah.
2% of the population. And that's the thing that I think is often lost in just trying to figure out what is reality and what is perception.
Well, it's so true. I was with a buddy of mine. We were working out together and we were talking about X, and he was talking about, like, I don't even remember what it was, but it was some post. And he was like, how did you not see this? This was everywhere on X. And I was like, you have a different X than me, dude. So this is, again, someone on X all the time. And we have completely different algorithms. We're not seeing the same things at all. I was on Jubilee. I did a debate with Glenn Greenwald on the Iran war. To me, as someone in politics, very excited for this. I thought it was a huge huge moment for me. I'm out there talking to some of my friends and family. I'm like, I debated Glenn Greenwald. Not a single person knew who that was. No one knows who he is. And so that's just what it comes down to. Most Americans are not thinking about these things. They're not looking at, like, no one knows who James Fishback or Nick Fuentes, or, maybe some people know who Candace Owens is, but they're not watching her regularly. People need to touch grass.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It's even funny. Again, my wife is probably more engaged through proxy because of me. And, I'm like, hey, babe, I got this huge person coming on. I'm like, Joshua Carr's coming on, or whoever it is, right? Like these really well-known people. And
I was like, I have no idea who that is.
He's like, oh, that sounds great, babe. Good job. High five.
Yeah.
So it is funny. It is funny. And I think we need to realize, and the other part of this too is I know I've been attacked incessantly. I'm sure you are getting the same thing. As a matter of fact, folks, I just got the phone a little while ago with Jason Witt and with the Jay Witt podcast. Folks, I want you to pray for Jay Witt and his family. I was actually calling him. I kind of seen what was going on with Jay Witt in social media. I had no idea the reality of it. His family is under attack like you wouldn't believe. So make sure you keep him in his prayers. Continue to send him encouraging messages. He sent me some information. We're going to try to inform the public of what's going on with that. But this is not a fun space to be in. When they don't have truth, facts on their side, they're going to attack you personally. And just today I was going through, there's posts going around via proxies of Elizabeth Lane that are saying that I'm a PDF, that I grape chill. I mean, it is horrific. But
that's their go-to.
This is what these people will resort to each and every time. And it just tells you what type of people you're dealing with and where their morals and values are, and the fact that they're willing to win at any cost. And that's why, and we see it time and time again. It's like they will lie, and you expose lie after lie after lie after lie. And then they will come back and say, oh, no, you're the liar. And even though they have false narratives being pushed against you, for other people out there, what is your advice for people that are dealing with that?
It's hard. I've gone through it. I know you've gone through it, Gary. It's really tough. I honestly, if you don't want to get into this industry and you don't want to have that happen, then don't do it. But there are even those of you out there who are, you're just good people on X, you're responding to the lies, and people are saying these horrible things about you. My advice would be to try and find those people who really are just kind of in the middle, like, oh yeah, what's going on with Candace Owens? And talk to those people. And even the people who already know Candace Owens is crazy, to give them the encouragement of, she is crazy, keep exposing those lies. But for those people who are far gone, I know it's hard to do, but just kind of ignoring it and just treating it as the noise it is, it's all we can do. Because otherwise, and I've had days like this, you just completely lose faith in humanity. You see these people and you're like, I don't know what else to show you. Like, you can see the evidence in front of you. We've exposed her lies dozens and dozens of times. And now you're saying that I'm the grifter. It doesn't make any sense. But I do think we just need to ignore those people ultimately. And God will be their judge. And I'm not their judge. All we can do is help those people who really are convincible.
Yeah. And, I'm always trying, I always want this channel to be a call to action, right? It's not just sitting there listening to you and I. We need more people in this space. We need more people to be aware that this is the front lines of the 5th generational warfare, which is what we're up against. And it becomes clearer and clearer to me. And I want people to get out there and become content creators and find something where that they can contribute. Maybe it's just simply sharing our content. Maybe it's down there talking in the comments, hitting likes, doing all those things, promoting other people. Maybe it's that they need a YouTube channel, or maybe, they can be someone that can, um, wax poetically on X, and build an audience that way. But we need more people in this fight. But one of the things I tell people all the time is, like, you better be prepared for what's coming and understand. Like, I had no idea getting into this, that just sitting here and say, look, she lied about X, Y, and Z. And it's like, oh, no, no, no. You're a Fed. You're paid by the Jews. You're paid by TPUSA. Your wife is this. Your kids are that. I got doxxed. People came right after they doxed me. I had people come and vandalize my property. So, like, it is real. And I will also say, I've been talking about conservative politics for a long time, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on this. I have found that the Candace cult seems to be more radical and potentially more dangerous than just about anything I've seen on the left, to some extent. But I mean, it is like what they do online is pretty insane to me.
Yeah, I would say, to me, the most militant group is the pro-abortion movement. They've been the worst to me personally. They've given me the most death threats to my family. But Candace is a close second. And there's something about that cult of personality that just gets people so riled up, because somehow, and I don't know how she does this because I don't see it at all, but she makes her audience feel like they are an extension of her.
Yeah.
And so when you are attacking the ideas, somehow they personally feel attacked, or if you're attacking her, they personally feel attacked. And so they feel like in order to combat you, they have to dox you, they have to, threaten you with violence. I agree with you. I mean, it's truly shocking the amount of DMs that I get. I can only imagine what you're getting as well.
Yeah, no, it's like I said, I regularly get death threats. I regularly get those death insinuations. I regularly get my family brought into this. And again, for years and years and years, I've talked against the left. I've had kind of, I don't know, I've dealt with Antifa and things like that. I never personally received anything like the treatment that I've gotten from the Candy Cult, from that side of it. And of course, I know other people have different experiences, and basically what I'm talking about is essentially anecdote to what's going on out there. But let's go back to like where this started specifically with Candace for you, because I was kind of doing my own investigation. I had no idea what was happening with Candace Owens, and then it was brought to my attention. And I'll tell you, Natalie Jean Beisner was early on this. I wasn't paying attention to Candace. As a matter of fact, I still had positive. Like the last time I'd even looked at anything Candace was doing was back when she was still sane and at the Daily Wire and still pushing conservative principles. So I didn't know anything about what Candace was doing, and I saw a post on Instagram, I think either late October, maybe it was early November, and she said something about Candace. And I was like, I knew who Natalie was, but I was like, this is just another person in the conservative world being jealous of somebody's success. I was like, before I say anything, I'm going to go research this episode. And when I watched that episode and I saw the tactics being used and what was being said, coming from a special operations and understanding what information operations is and how well engineered it was to be compelling and influential in that, in the different, again, just the different tactics that were being used intentionally, the intentionality of what was being done in there, I was shocked. And that's what brought my attention. And I knew, like, hey, this is a real threat. And I understood it's not just about attacking Charlie Kirk, his legacy, Erica Kirk, TPUSA. This has much broader and now geopolitical implications into this and what it's doing for our country. So, that was kind of where I saw what was going on. And I knew it would not be beneficial to me. At the time, I was getting probably 3,000 to 4,000 new subscribers. When I launched my first video for Candace Owens, I thought for sure I was going to lose 150,000 subscribers. I was at like 285,000 subscribers December 6th when I made my first Candace video. And I've basically been stuck there ever since. I lose some, I gain some. We're at like 286,000 subscribers, 6 months later. I don't care. I don't care if I lose all the subscribers. It doesn't matter to me. But what brought the urgency to you, and also you had to know that you were getting into this and it was not going to necessarily be beneficial to you as well?
Yeah, I was very concerned about that. To be honest with you, my channel wasn't doing super well at the time. So, from a business perspective, I just was like, well, I might as well do something truthful because nothing's going well anyway. But I really got into it because I live right next to UVU where Charlie Kirk was assassinated. I live 3 minutes away.
Oh,
I
wow.
have literally hundreds of people I know that were at the event that go to UVU. And when the news came in that it happened, I thought, well, wow, obviously horrible, but this is going to be a really strong unifying for the conservative movement to come together. And I was actually in St. George the day that Charlie was, or excuse me, that Tyler Robinson was brought in. So it's very close to me. And so to see her lie about things in Provo and Orem is where things really began for me, where I saw people saying things about the Egyptian plains, for example, or when I saw things said about people that I knew personally in my community that just were not true. It really made me pause. And I think that was in late October. The Egyptian plains started being talked about. There were some other people in Orem area that I knew of that Candace Owens was talking about. And it's one thing to kind of through the internet find out, oh, what Candace Owens is saying is not true. But it's another thing to see it in person,
Yeah.
to literally know the geography and the like. I've been to UVU many times. I know exactly the layout. I know where Tyler Robinson was. I know where Charlie Kirk was. And for Candace Owens to get all of these details completely wrong was just so shocking to me. That's where it kind of began. And I haven't been very early on a lot of political things, but that's the one thing I'm very proud of. I was very early. I did not see anyone else talking about it. I'm sure there were some people talking about it, but in terms of large podcasters, I did not know anyone else who was talking about this. And so I was trying to come at it from a perspective of being in Orem. Of course, there was a lot of beehive cult talk, which also was shocking to me and made me, want to speak out against it even more. But I kind of made that decision right there that I knew for a fact Candace Owens knew she was lying, and I was going to defend the people that she was lying about. On a personal note as well, my mom is a widow, and so I've always been, protective of widows, and I know what happens to children whose parents die. And seeing her do that to Erica Kirk made me incredibly emotional and passionate about exposing Candace in a way that I haven't really felt about other political issues.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Yeah, no, I too, I ended up going there, and I'll tell you, I thought that was so important. I was like, if I'm going to investigate this thing, I need to go there and actually see some truth on the ground. And you're right. It just clarified everything for me. It just, I still didn't know at the time if, we were getting some sort of false narrative from the government. I was looking, they had released the charging documents. I constantly heard different things being said around that I didn't have answers to. Like one of them, it was kind of a weird one, was like, hey, this video where he's jumping off the roof. This video is definitely AI because you see this person disappear behind a tree. And I was like, wow, that is weird. That's pretty compelling. And then I went there and I saw what actually happened and I recreated that. It's like, oh, this was not as weird as there's a reasonable explanation for it. And then the other thing that Candace kept pushing that really, and we always heard, or at least I kept hearing on the internet at early days of this, was how did he get on the roof? And I had that same question. I heard that he had to have a key card. I literally heard people saying, I've talked to people, faculty at UVU, and there is no way to get on that roof. And then I go there, I walk up those stairs, and I see that you just step over the railing. And then I have, we contrast that with Candace Owens still saying, what do you expect us to believe? That he was Spider-Man scaling the roof like Spider-Man? Like she was always pushing that. And she's never showed anybody that. She's never went to UVU. And then I also thought it was extremely telling when the charging documents were released. This was one of the first episodes I went back to, how she took talking bullet points from the charging documents, but didn't actually read the charging documents to her fans, to her viewers. The amount of information that she omits intentionally to preserve the narrative that she's trying to push is so obvious and so deceptive. And it's wild to not see even her viewers hold her accountable for any of it.
Well, one of the craziest parts about this too is when you're dealing with real people and those people are falsely accused, there's something in us, in humans, where you just want to prove your innocence so bad.
Yeah.
And so I actually had people reaching out to me, giving me information they probably shouldn't have given me,
Yeah.
like birth certificates and passports, just to prove to me that they weren't a foreign agent, like Candace Owens had said, for example. And
Sure.
so if they're willing to do that for me, I'm willing to bet they did it for Candace as well. And so Candace knew for a fact some of these people, and by the way, these were like civilians. These aren't personalities. If Candace Owens tries to defame us, we're going to have to prove malice. But for all these other people, all they have to do is prove negligence, because they're just normal people. And they sent, I know for a fact, some of these people sent birth certificates to Candace Owens to prove they're not foreign agents like she claimed. And like you said, she completely omitted that from her episodes. And so there's just no other way to look at it other than she's pushing a certain narrative to make money. She has no allegiance to the truth whatsoever.
Yeah, and we saw that. I think that was especially clear. It should be clear to everybody when I don't know if you watched her X space when she was responding to the whole Fort Huachuca, when there was a lot of people even on her side kind of trying to take her to task on the whole Fort Huachuca debacle. But she comes out and admits on that after that December 18th interview with Mitch Snow, that at her December 15th meeting with Erica Kirk brought up the fact, like, hey, I know you're basically accusing Brian Harpole. Here's Brian Harpole's itinerary. Here's all of his flight information. And she never brought that up. She never provided that exculpatory information. It wasn't like, hey, you know what? I know what Mitch is saying over here and I believe him. I'm just going to tell you that Erica Kirk gave me contrary evidence, but I don't believe it. You can even say, I don't believe this, but she didn't even tell anyone.
Right. And this is
at all.
This is why I say that between Candace and some of her most intense cult followers, there's just no point in arguing with them at this point. Early on, I had kind of a similar attitude to that, which was like, no, but Candace, look at this, look at this. It wasn't until maybe December-ish, January, I realized, oh, wow, this is not mistakes being made. This is a coordinated effort. And of course, you can look at how her views and her revenue has changed over time. She is making so much money off of this. And she realized that early on, and she's continuing it to this day.
Well, you did a pretty detailed analysis of that. What was your final conclusion? I know this was a couple of weeks ago, but it was more money than I had realized for sure.
Yeah, she makes about $300,000 a day, like per episode. Wow. And she's able to do that through mostly mid-roll host read ads, which is how most podcasters make a lot of money. And you can see over time that her views, they really actually were struggling quite a bit before Charlie Kirk was assassinated. Then she starts talking about it a little bit. It goes up. Then it really spikes up. And then there's actually a time where you can almost see that her audience maybe got a little bit tired. If you look at her YouTube postings, she actually did a couple episodes where she didn't talk about Erica Kirk. And so it's like, oh, interesting. And then I think it was February, just a massive spike up where she starts talking about Erica Kirk again. So you can see the calculus in her mind. But overall, between about a 6-month period, maybe a little longer than 6 months, she can make about $58 million doing this. And I have spoken to a lot of people. Those were my estimates. I don't want to go too much into this because this is a personal conversation I had, but I can say I had an interview with Jeremy Boring, who obviously knows media, probably conservative media, probably better than anyone, and knows Candace Owens' numbers very well. And he looked at me right in the eye, him and his producer, and said, you were dead on the revenue that Candace Owens has pulled in. No one else has even been close, and she will continue to do this for as long as she can. And I'm a personal believer. I think people get what they want for the most part. I think that, as Christ said, they have their reward. So I think Candace is going to keep doing this. I think she's going to keep being fabulously rich doing it. I don't know if she's going to get a reckoning. I think the defamation suits will come in, but I think she'll out-earn what she's going to have to pay out on them. And that's why I say, let's convince who we can. But for those that we can't, they're going to keep funding a witch, frankly. Yeah. And that's her reward.
No, like you said, there is no convincing the vast majority of her followers. Like what we're out there doing is talking to the reasonable left among us, and also making people that haven't been exposed to her lies immune to her lies, or at least aware going into it with a just not like ready to buy into everything that she says, and also to keep people from getting sucked into that. I think that's really important. And just, it's always important to produce the counter narrative to lies, and that is the truth. I mean,
Yes.
it's just principally, like, if no one else was listening, if no
Yes.
one else was, if I had one person on this live stream right now, it was just me, you, and I don't know, Tom Smith over here. Like, I think it would be important for us to lay this out, because truth is important. We cannot have and I know we're a constitutional republic, but it's based on democracy. Like, that's our election system. We can't make good decisions with bad information. And that's what they want. And this is so much deeper than just the Candace Owens, Charlie Kirk saga. This goes into undermining the very fabric of our society, the fabric of our justice system. The political implications of this are completely insane. I think it's very obvious at this point, and it would be. Like, I don't care. Before she actually went to Russia, which is pretty wild to watch. All you got to do is take a look at what Candace Owens is doing. And you can throw in any other podcaster with a similar message that is subversive to the Trump administration. There are so many different foreign adversaries, and of course the political adversaries like the George Soros types, that would look at that, analyze it, and say, hey, look, we have a real opportunity here to exploit this and to undermine the Trump administration, so what we're not dealing with Trump or MAGA in the future. And trust me, folks, Iran, China, Russia, these people do not want the Trump administration. What they want to implement is BRICS, and we may talk a little bit about that. And now this thing has turned into, and they're going to fund bots, sock puppet accounts. They're going to fund influence campaigns that push her, and she's going to make money off of that. It doesn't need direct, collusion or conspiracy. She doesn't need to be talking directly to someone in the Kremlin. Like, she is going to be incentivized to continue to push what they're helping boost, which makes her more money. And just like you said, if you sit there, like if you and I had a video and it's like, hey, this is something we believe in, and it does really well, we're probably going to talk about that some more. So what's insidious about this is that it looks organic and it feels organic. But I think once you start looking at the comments, you start looking at what else is going on, and just a little bit of common sense applied to the geopolitical atmosphere, it becomes really obvious of what's happening with the influence operations outside of this country.
Yeah, and it makes perfect sense too for other countries to do this. I mean, you probably know this number better than I do. I think $800 or $900 billion is our defense budget in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so other countries obviously have a smaller. Yeah, exactly. So other countries may have a smaller budget, obviously much smaller than the U.S., but they still have billions of dollars. And so if you're looking into how to best win on the global stage as a foreign nation, you're thinking, okay, we could invest $1 billion into creating high-tech drones or a Navy, for example, or we could just spend $20 million and give it to Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson, who get millions of views. And we don't have to do anything. You don't have to have the infrastructure to create a military. You don't have to have the risk of getting caught creating weapons that you're not supposed to create. You don't have the risk of losing troops. All you have to do is let Americans do the dirty work, and it's far less expensive. And believe me, $20 million, $1 billion for the military may not be that much money, but $20 million is a lot of money to any influencer out there, and they can maybe do much more damage with soft power than hard power. And that's really what this is about.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that a lot of people, I think, they don't understand the agenda of Russia and Iran in China. And they don't understand how detrimental it is to the United States and what we have at play. Look, folks, we're going to have some other people, some economists come on and talk about this. But if you understand what the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum is, it's essentially pushing for the downfall of the West, ultimately the United States. The other thing is trying to do is they're trying to figure out ways through influence operations to get BRICS into place. Folks, if BRICS is successful and they're able to remove the dollar as the standard, if you don't understand what that implies and what will happen to the United States, folks, you think the economy is bad now? Wait till you see gas at $15, $20 per gallon when we're all just facing abject poverty. We will not be able to project power. We will not have the economic influences. It is worse than them dropping a freaking nuclear bomb here in the United States. It really is. It really is. Because If they were suddenly to launch a nuclear attack or somebody were able to have we'd have millions of people dead. Millions of people will die for lots of other different reasons. But on top of that, like if we have some sort of attack on this country, it would mobilize the United States and move us forward. Like this is the long game that they're thinking about. And the impacts of this are so much worse than any sort of conventional warfare. And that's what they're going to spend millions and millions of dollars creating these bot farms, creating these different ways to push and to motivate American influencers to push their propaganda. That's what's happening. And that's what's taking place right now. Well, I think it starts on the 3rd, the economic forum. But that's why they're having Candace come over, because I think she is the perfect candidate for this.
It's really scary. It's funny that you brought up the gas prices and BRICS, because this is something me and my wife were talking about yesterday. She works in finance, so we're always interested in talking about these things. But a lot of people don't realize other Western countries, I'm just talking Western right now, have such incredibly high prices because of the fact that they are not the standard currency of the world like we are. Hong Kong, for example, I guess Hong Kong, not really Western anymore, but $15 a gallon. That's how much gas is there. Canada, $6 to $7. Iceland, $10 to $12 in gas. That is the result of not having your currency as the world reserve currency. And what BRICS is wanting to do is, like you said, truly as bad as a nuclear bomb hitting America. And that is why Candace Owens going to this, to me, is like the most clear example of treason I've ever seen. And I do not use that word lightly. It is full on treasonous, because this, and a lot of people don't realize this, a lot of her followers have said in the comments, yeah, she's speaking, but she's speaking at an economic forum. It's not a big deal. There has never been a U.S. official that has ever spoken at this conference. Not one, never. We've never had an ambassador go and speak. We've never had a member of a cabinet go speak. No one has spoken at this because it is an anti-America conference in its own right. And of course, I think you spoke about this with Ryan Morrow, I think is his name.
Yep.
But all the people speaking at it are literal propagandists for Russia and for Brazil and China and Iran. So it's terrifying. And I just don't understand how anyone could defend it.
Yeah, and they are. And like, first of all, why would you invite, out of all the people out there, why would you invite Candace Owens?
Exactly. It can't be for her economic. Like, she's not an economist. She doesn't know anything about that.
And you can look at what she did to Brexit as evidence of that. But look, you know, they know exactly what they're doing, and they're picking the exact right target. Like I posted earlier about this. Candace has that main character syndrome. She has a hero complex. Her narcissism has no end. And this is, and folks, they're not going to go there and convince her like, hey, you know what? We know you don't like Trump. We know you don't like what's going on there. We're going to help you take down the United States. That's not what it is. Folks, these are people that are extremely sophisticated, that understand how to manipulate people on a level and scale that you just have no idea of. And what they're going to do is they're going to sell her on the idea that we're going to help you help your country. They're going to play into her ego and like, you are the one that we need to make sure that we can help you help our country. We don't want to be an enemy of the United States. They're going to convince her that she's here to save the United States when she's actually ushering in the downfall of our own country. And she's too stupid to realize what she's getting into. She is so in over her head, and she doesn't realize the fire that she's playing with. But you know what? And they may even talking about helping her become, you know, a politician or, God forbid, the president. But that's what they're going to do. They're going to sell this like, hey, we're on your side. We're on America's side. We're here to help. And in reality, they are helping her help destroy this country. That's what's actually taking place.
That's a really important distinction too, because oftentimes when it comes to this, the other side, the woke right, they're peddling these conspiracy theories. It's very intense. It's very top down, massive plan in the works. That is not what this is. No. Candace Owens is not been talking to Putin every single day and has this master plan. That's not what it is. They are slowly by degrees going to take influencers, make them more and more pro-Russia, and let them do the dirty work for them, making them feel justified in doing so. Even for as bad as I think Candace Owens is, I don't think Candace Owens wants to overthrow the United States and put in a Russian dictator. I don't think that. However, that does not mean she cannot be manipulated into doing it. So it's not this master crazy plan. It's just incentives. This is what Russia wants to do. They don't want America to be the dominant force in the world. And they know that very gullible influencers with a lot of influence can be a tool to do that.
Yeah. And if they can convince you that if they convince that that the French Foreign Legion, an Israeli assassin, and the Freemasons conspired at Fort Huachuca, I guess at this point, to kill Charlie Kirk, and there's millions of people that will believe that, they know, like, you know what, you're the right person for this, because we're going to be able to help you sell a bunch of goods. And like you said, they're not going to present anything to her that on its face is subversive or traitorous against the United States. It's going to be sold as a, hey, you know what, we're just here to help you help your country. And
we want to be allies with the United States.
Yeah.
Why are we fighting each other? Let's work together. Why don't you go and help people understand why Russia is such a good place and would be such a great ally for the United States?
Yeah, no, 100%. I also want to, somebody threw this up there. I want to bring this in. She's selfish in taking her children to Russia. Shame on her. I dislike Candace, but I'm concerned for her children. Folks, you have nothing to be concerned about for her safety. She is going to be under constant protection the moment that she gets there. In the United States, I used to work for the Department of State. I used to travel to embassies and consulates doing security work. And I can tell you what we have are these people that we call expediters. They meet people at the airport. They help people get there safely. They can speak the language. You're running around in a up-armored vehicle. These people are armed. They're there for security. The difference is they're going to be FSB agents. All right. This is the CIA version of Russian intelligence. And they're going to be there monitoring everything that they do. They're going to be giving reports on what they're doing, what they're saying, different ways to see what their psychological profile in that moment is, seeing different ways that they can exploit them. They're going to be under constant surveillance. And on top of that, once they go to Russia, I talked about this with Ryan the other day, folks, all of their electronics are going to be exploited. Like everything that they have will be absolutely hacked and monitored from this going forward, if it wasn't already. The other thing, and it's kind of a benefit to the United States, when you have someone like this going overseas, and if they have the probable cause, I don't know what our government has on Candace, maybe something, maybe nothing. But let me tell you something. When you go overseas and you're potentially collaborating with our adversaries, you're opening yourself up to a whole nother level of surveillance and observation, things that certain agencies can't do stateside. You better believe they're doing overseas. And you're just exposing yourself to both of those sides of that. So, don't worry about her family. Her family she'll be safer than your family here in the United States at this moment. I promise you, nothing's going to happen to Candace. Nothing's going to happen to her kids. And the fact that she would travel there under a level 4 Department of State do not travel advisory, it is insane. And there's only one way that takes place, and that's if you're getting a personal invitation from the Kremlin. So,
that's exactly right.
It's wild to watch. I think she's overstepped here. I think this was a strategic error on her part, because it kind of confirms for a lot of us what we already thought was taking place. It becomes extremely obvious. And I do think, whether she realizes it or not, this is going to damage some of her support that she has on her side now.
Yeah, I agree with you. She way overstepped. If she had just come out, and I said this, I love to travel. I love to travel. I would love to travel to every country in the world. If there was a way for me to go to North Korea, I would do it. But I know for a fact if I showed up in North Korea, they would arrest me. Same is true for probably Qatar and a lot of the Gulf states, and certainly true for places like Iran and Russia and China as well. I'll probably never be able to go to some of those countries because of the things I've said. And that is further proof that Candace is friendly to Russia. But I think that she is really overstepped here. I'm seeing a lot of noise online from people thinking, okay, but why did she lie? It's one thing, and I want to give people grace and be realistic. If you are invited to go to Russia and they're saying you are a great voice for Christianity, for example, we want you to come speak about Christ for an hour, and we're going to pay you because that's what you do. You get paid to speak.
We're going to pay you a speakership fee, cover your travel expenses, all those things.
Yeah, just the normal stuff. and Candace went to Russia and did it, and that was it, and she disclosed all of that, I would still think, okay, Candace is very friendly with Russia. But it is not the same as what she did here. She specifically said, I'm going on vacation with my family. And she is going to a BRICS economic forum. Like, it is the craziest lie ever. She could have just said, I'm speaking at this. Oh, yeah, it's just a small conference. But instead, she's literally speaking at the BRICS conference, and she lied about it, which means, of course, she knew that it was not something that would come across well. Again, what I don't understand is, how did she think she was going to get away with this? Did she really think that we were all just going to think that she was vacationing and we wouldn't know that she was speaking at this conference?
You know, I don't have a good answer for you. I'm not going to try to pretend to know what's going on inside her head, but it is very telling and very obvious that she just flat out lied.
Yeah.
And there's a reason for it. Like, for those of you that support Candace, like, don't you think that's a problem? Like, don't you think the things that she has omitted are a problem? Like, I don't know. I don't know.
And again, to give the grace, I can confidently say today, maybe people will disagree with this, but I'm just going to be very honest with you guys. I can confidently say today that if the UK called me and said, Josh, we really like what you talk about on capitalism, for example, we'd like you to come to a conference in the UK and speak. We're going to give you $1,000 to do it, and we're going to pay for your flights. I would say yes. I would do it. And then I would tell everybody in my audience exactly what I'm doing. So it's not the fact, again, that she has gone and spoke somewhere at a foreign nation that's the problem. And I think that her audience is trying to kind of minimize it to that. It is the fact that she lied and she's going to a BRICS conference. Those are the two main problems.
And there's great fishing in Russia. Don't forget that.
Yeah, exactly. Great fishing, which apparently, I want to see if we can find out why George Farmer is going there so much, because it almost seems like she made that comment to back up maybe some of the weird movings that he's had between the UK and Russia. I haven't heard anything, but I would love to get some investigative journalism on that.
Yeah, and again, even if let's say I wouldn't go, but I'm just saying, let's say Russia sent me the same invitation, or do you? I wouldn't go to Russia. Given my military background, I'd probably end up in the gulag somewhere in Siberia. But with that being said, let's say I did go. And the first thing that I would say is, like, look, I'm just telling you folks, I know how this works. They're going to be attempting to exploit me. I'm going to bring electronics that I'm leaving there. And by the way, that's what we do with Department of State and any other diplomats or other anyone that's doing anything operationally through the U.S. government. When they go to these countries where they know electronic exploitation is a high risk and surveillance is a high risk, you will either be given electronics there, a computer, a phone, whatever it is, and then you leave it there. But what I would do is I would use this as an opportunity to tell people, like, hey, yeah, I'm going to go there. And I can tell you right now, they're going to try to recruit me. They're going to try to do something to try to get me to push some sort of Russian propaganda. And then come back and tell everybody what happened. And, like, hey, this is what happened. I don't think we're gonna see any of that.
I don't think so.
So yeah, it'll be interesting. I can't wait to see what she has to say when she comes back. I can't wait to see how she tries to downplay this. And look, folks, there doesn't have to be any money exchanged. What they're going to do is they're going to try to help her country. And what will happen, as long as she stays on message, she will get this artificial boost that is almost impossible to detect outside of, I hope the CIA, I hope the NSA, I hope the FBI is tracking what's going on social media. I think they are to an extent, but I think they also underestimate the impacts that it's having. I just think their attention is elsewhere, and I just don't think the U.S. is currently good at fifth generational warfare and understand what's happening online. I hope I'm wrong. But she will continue to push messages, and she will continue to convince people to work against their own interests here in the United States, just in the same way that we see the woke right saying, hey, don't vote in the midterms. You know what? Donald Trump is so bad that we should go back to the Biden era days where the borders were completely open. We were being flooded and we were being invaded, millions of people per year. And on top of that, they want to talk about the Epstein files, but what they're not talking about is how much sex trafficking, child trafficking was taking place under the Biden administration when you have these borders open the way that it is. Hundreds of thousands of kids. I think it was like 300,000 kids that they couldn't track. I mean, what percentage of those kids were specifically being brought here for trafficking, and I mean sexual trafficking. Um, we've reduced opioid deaths by 40,000 per year. Trump versus Biden. So they're saying, hey, you know what? Things are so bad. Epstein files, the Iran war, it's so bad that we need to go back to, we need to let the Democrats take back over and continue to ruin this country. Pack the Supreme Court, get rid of the filibuster, pack federal courts with these activist judges, just like we saw, what was it Maine or Delaware somewhere just recently, how they overturned a new law, a judge overturned the new law requiring ID for voting. So it's a wild thing to watch, Josh.
Yeah, I think kind of turning everything together that we talked about. The good news is most Americans are still not listening to Candace Owens and X.
Yeah.
And so in my opinion, it's kind of a two-pronged approach. One, flood the internet with good truth, which is what we're trying to do. The second one is, in an appropriate way, encourage Americans to touch grass and kind of just stay detached from those things. Because at the end of the day, Russians can't really talk to people in Utah, for example, where I live. It's too far from Russia. The only way they can talk to us is through the internet. And if you're too busy spending time with your family and your kids, then you're pretty solid. And when election times come, you'll think, well, of course, like you won't even realize that there's been this campaign trying to get you to vote for Democrats or not vote at all. So that's the thing, that it's kind of ironic because we're creators, but I'm always telling people, like, yeah, maybe listen to your favorite couple of shows while you're on your way to work. But other than that, we can only do so much. We can only know so much. We can only share so much. The best thing that you can do is to take care of your family and do what you think's right.
I agree. I agree. And get active in local politics. I mean, that's huge.
Yes.
There's so many different ways that people can contribute to the preservation of our country. And, you know, if you're big on X and you're following us and you're big into social media and you like this and you see this and you feel like you have a calling, you know, I guarantee you I will help you with stuff. If, you know, I'm sure Josh will help you with stuff. You reach out to them. I will help you in any way possible. I'll have you on the show. I will help you get your channels, whatever it is that you want to do. What we can't do is just stand by and continue to let these lies spread. We've always taken this approach with the left, and I think Charlie Kirk was the best among us. He addressed these lies and the propaganda head on, and we just can't allow this deception to take place to where people are voting against their own interests in their own country. And, you know, I saw recently, because I get this a lot too, it's like somebody said, well, you know, why are you covering Candace Owens pretty intensely? You know, if you just stopped, she would, you know, it's starve the grift mentality. And you had a pretty good answer with that, but I'd like to hear you kind of talk about that a little bit more. And I know you've even addressed on some of your videos.
Yeah, I think it's a super lazy answer. And I think the people who are saying it have good intentions. So I don't want them to feel slighted by that.
Yeah.
But we would never do that about Barack Obama in 2010. We would never do that about Joe Biden in 2022. We don't do it about Hassan Piker or the Young Turks. So why would we do that about Candace Owens? And what I really care about at the end of the day, that's kind of a big picture level, but on a personal level, God knows I'm a political commentator. We could go into this, but I've prayed about my career path. This was not always my career path. I feel that God wants me to do this. I believe in personal revelation. At the end of the day, if I look at God and he looks back at me and says, Josh, you talked too much about Candace Owens. You should have been talking about some other important information. I will look at him and I will apologize and I will say, you're right. And I think that I can get past it and repent. But if God looks at me and says, you did not defend a widow, you did not tell the truth, you did not call out someone who was lying, who came from your own movement, I don't think I'm ever going to be able to live with that shame. And I think that that would ultimately cost me my soul. And so I am more willing to go on the side of talking too much about Candace Owens than not at all. And if it means I make a mistake in so doing, then that's a mistake, but at least I'll have my soul.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I couldn't look at myself because it was At the time, I had this producer when I first decided to talk. I was like, you know what, I'm going to do a video on Candace. He's like, there's no benefit, man. He's like, keep doing what you're doing. There's no benefit to this whatsoever. There's only downside. And I'm like, nope, got to do it. And I felt exactly that. Like I felt 100% that God was saying, this is what you need to talk about. And I could have ignored it. And next thing you know, I'm sitting in the belly of a whale is what will end up happening. But you know, it is like this is not beneficial to us. It is not. It's the whatever the opposite of grifting is. This is what this is because it's not fun. I did want to throw up. We have a super chat from one of your people out there, Mandy, and I do have this video that I pulled up, so we'll actually watch this. Our good friend Nathan Livingstone on Milk Bar TV. Here is a montage of Candace Owens pro-Russian.
I have no issues with Putin as a leader because I know that our leaders have definitely probably murdered a lot more innocent civilians than Putin ever has. The Western media, I would argue, is more propagandist than the Eastern media. I'm not even kidding. Putin, dictator. And it's like, guys, have you figured it out yet that our press lies about everything? Russia bad, Putin evil. The Western press is trying to convince you, as they always do, that Vladimir Putin is just a crazy dictator. I don't care about Ukraine at all. I want to be very clear. And I harbor a lot of disgust. Ukraine, yeah, Zelensky's a Bolshevik. He's mass murdering Christians. Immediately, from the very beginning, we're always lying about what was happening between Ukraine and Russia, this foreign nation. Has nothing to do with America. There's always been a laundromat for the military-industrial complex. That is what Ukraine is. What's happening in Ukraine is what has happened in Ukraine before. There's nothing new under the sun. It is a Christian genocide. They are intentionally mass murdering men in an unwinnable war. I will not be supporting the collapse of another Christian nation. I absolutely refuse to support what's happening, and I'm not going to allow Russia. You don't have to support Vladimir Putin, but I will not support the mass killing of Russian Christians. Genocide of Christian men that's happening. And there is no question that we are the agitators of it. Their job is to convince the Western world that this is really happening because of big evil Russia, and not because they have more Machiavellian plans afoot there. Russia has a smaller GDP than California, okay? They are not trying to expand and recreate the Soviet Union. That's a nonsense. The threat is the European Union, okay? The threat is the globalist state. We are everything that the Soviet Union aspired to be. The military-industrial complex, because they have plans to invade Russia, okay? Wake up. This is not a conspiracy. Russia is not in Mexico. They're not in Canada. I don't care. I want nothing to do with this nonsense. You think Putin bad? Putin said a lot of very interesting things when he sat down with Tucker, but of the most interest, perhaps, was his resolve that the world was moving away from Western hegemony, that countries would no longer allow the United States to just bully them with sanctions into certain positions that they don't agree with. This hatred for Russia is nonsensical. I grew up with Russians, and they were first and foremost like the hardest workers in terms of their schoolwork, really good values. They are definitely people that bring forth all of the classics in America. And I'm talking about their contributions in terms of music and the arts, in terms of ballet, are so ridiculous when on the topic of Russia. It's like Russia. We gotta be afraid. I'm not afraid of Russia, okay? I have an understanding that they have a...
All right, so we get the point. There's a lot. I didn't even know there was that much there. Like I was like, wow, this thing is 3.5 minutes. And we probably just got demonetized because of that audio, but that's fine.
That's exactly what I thought.
Totally worth it. So anyways, you know, the whole Russia thing, which I keep getting a lot in my comments now that I've been talking about this and talking about Elizabeth Lane. You know, it was kind of funny and effective, that whole Russia, the hoax thing when it came to Trump, because it was so ridiculous, the idea that Trump was working for Russia. It kind of hits different when you're dealing with somebody like Elizabeth Lane that's from Georgia, a Russian bloc that is completely has been pushing nothing but pro-Russian, pro-Putin propaganda. And then when it comes to Candace, it doesn't really work when you're in Russia. When you're actually in Russia and you're actually at the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum, it just doesn't work the same.
No, it doesn't. A lot of people have asked me too, is it that Candace is pro-Russia, therefore Russia is inviting her to this conference? Or is she being paid by Russia already, and that's why she's being invited to the conference? I think it's kind of cyclical, especially for Elizabeth Lane as well. Like, yes, they already are just anti-American because of who they are, but then also they can make money off of it. And so it just goes like, it doesn't have to necessarily be one reason or the other. I think these people are inherently anti-American and pro-Russia, just even without the money. But of course, the money is like an added boost. So,
yeah, they're all they're doing is capitalizing on an opportunity. Russia, when they see people like Candace Owens and Elizabeth Lane. Now, I'll tell you, I think we have a lot of people looking into Elizabeth Lane. I think there's some more significant ties there, allegedly, and we will continue to flush those out. And I got more information coming. People are giving me a lot going on with that whole thing. Trust me. Going back to Candace, look, folks, you're never going to see where Russia hands Candace Owens a check directly. It's not going to be what happened. But what they can do, just like we talked about, is, they can make sure that they have a bot farm that's pushing an additional 2 million views on a video or whatever it is. And I want you to think about the synergistic effect of that. And people that understand the algorithms in this, you get an additional 2 million views artificially. Well, YouTube or whatever platform that's pushing this video doesn't understand that. Like, all it says is like, oh, a lot of people like this. Now it gets picked up by the algorithm and it gets pushed out even further through their own system. So they're exploiting it because they understand how the algorithm works. Then on top of that, they do reach more people. They reach more real people. And some percentage of that people that see that video are going to become a Candace Owens fan. And now they're going to be buying her merch. Now they're going to be doing this. Now they're going to become members. Now they're going to become part of her book club. Now they're going to be sharing their content. So the synergistic effect of all this, and she gets money from all that. And it's all because of an artificial boost on the backside of that. So there's never any direct money. She's probably never going to have to like register with Farah or anything like that. So that's how this works. And that's why it's so, it's just a sneaky way to do the exact same thing through different causes. It's the same way that politicians do these types of things. They go in, they're worth almost nothing, and they come out, 4-8 years later, and now they're multimillionaires. It's just how these things work.
Yeah, well, you're exactly right on the business side of it. A lot of people are kind of looking for that cut and dry check, but YouTube and Facebook work a little bit differently. But a lot of people don't realize this. This is actually a very common method in media companies. I'll bring up the Daily Wire, for example. The Daily Wire started their whole business model off of Facebook, actually, because Facebook used to be a lot better for monetization. And what they were able to find out is the CPM, which a CPM, for those of you who don't know, is cost per mil, meaning it's how much advertisers are willing to pay you per 1,000 views. And essentially what you can do with Facebook is you can pay to boost your own video for a certain amount of money. And so if you're really good at the strategy and the timing and the audiences, you can actually find a way to pay, let's say $20 to get 1,000 views in ad, to push it as an ad. And then you can make $30 in ad revenue. That's how Facebook works. And that's like, again, that's just a media thing. It's not a corrupt thing. That's something that a lot of people do. I've never done it. And YouTube isn't quite the same way, but it's close. And so to your point, Gary, you can do this from anything. It doesn't have to be you doing it to yourself. It could be someone doing it to you. And YouTube doesn't really care. They just want people to get videos and views out there. And so, it'd be very easy for them to invest, like I said, $1 million, $2 million, and for Candace to get $10, $20 million on the back end, and $1 to $2 million for a government is not a lot of money.
No. And then at the same time, she's going to continue to grow her audience. She's going to continue to push the narratives that they want pushed. She's going to grow in popularity. She's going to grow in influence. While it started artificially, it still has real world implications and benefits to her. There's no doubt about it. And there is a percentage of the population that have a proclivity for falling for her messaging. And, just like you talked about a moment ago, Josh, like how inclusive, it's brilliant that she's really has started almost a new genre of reality TV on social media. So now we get to go down this murder mystery that's super crazy. We get to come up with, play around with all these different theories, but she's deputizing her audience. It's like, I need you. I'm not going to leave this chair at all. I need you to go out there and investigate. I need you to send me emails. You're helping solve this mystery. And there's a lot of people out there that are just living sad, desperate lives, unfortunately, that this is giving them purpose and meaning. And they're all in. And it genuinely, I've never seen anything. And again, I don't use this term loosely either, but it is a cult. They will defend her to the death. They will go and attack her opponents with the most vicious and never think anything of it.
Yeah, because at least anecdotally, when I talk to people, when I have someone asking me about Candace Owens, oh, what's going on with her? Why is she so crazy? It's my friends who have, or even acquaintances or people I don't even know well, who have a family, they've got kids, they've got a job, they don't know what's going on, they're curious. A few people who don't know what I do have asked me about Candace Owens, and they're like, oh yeah, she is totally exposing Erica Kirk and TPUSA. Every single time there are people that don't have families, they're kind of lost in their lives. And so it is this kind of loneliness epidemic that I think Americans are experiencing. Those who are really lonely have to latch on to something. As I talked about earlier, humans by nature really enjoy stories. And so when you're lonely and you hear the story and you have this charismatic leader who is offering you this feeling of importance, it's really easy to latch onto. That's why my number one message, it will literally solve everyone's problems ever, is just get married and have kids and go to church. If you could just do that, you will not fall into crazy leftist propaganda. You won't fall into crazy Candace propaganda because you have meaning in your life and you just don't need that crap.
Yeah. No, I mean, that has to be the foundation. And that is truth and God are the antidote to this. And that's how we end up saving our country. And the further, look, we have more lies being pushed in the media on all sides. We have less God being pushed by our country, accepted in our country, and our country is not better for it. The further that we get away from God and the further that we get away from a personal relationship with Jesus Christ, the bigger problems that we have. And, you know, this is the push for globalism. This is the push for the idea that the United States, and that's what I've said with this woke right thing, take Candace out of it. All the other stuff, what, you know, the Owen Schroyers, Ian Carroll's, whoever, like what they're trying to convince you of is it's the globalist one world order agenda that's always been pushed on the left. It's just repackaged for the right. It's like, hey, you know what? We're tired of our people and our servicemen and women going overseas and getting killed. It's not worth it. We shouldn't be meddling in other countries. And what we need is isolationism. And it's the exact same thing, because isolationism is far more dangerous than interventionalism. Folks, if the United States recedes back away from the rest of the world, like that vacuum will be filled. And it's going to be filled by China. It will be filled by Russia. Like the idea, and this is another thing that like people are just completely oblivious to. Folks, China and Russia would love for the United States to hate Israel and to end our relationship with Israel. And it's not because they believe all these tropes that are being pushed. It's because they would love to be the ally of Israel, because it is such a strategic location, and that they want to backfill that. They want the relationship, and China's been trying to do this for a really long time. Again, what we have is people getting tricked into siding with something that is going to destroy ourselves and destroy our country. They're like, yeah, Israel, Jews, they're the worst. They're the worst. They're the demons. They caused all these problems. And as soon as we're gone, we're going to have the people that were telling us that to begin with backfilling us and building that relationship so that they can be there. And then when we're like, hey, Israel, we're your friends. No, you're not. Your people hate us. That's where we're going to be.
The problem with isolationism is, to your point, you can't take it back.
Yeah.
Once that void has been filled, it's really hard to scrape back being on the world stage. If you're too interventionalist, you can just pull back, which is basically what we did. We basically said, oh yeah, we may have overstepped a bit in the Middle East. Let's pull it back a little bit. Some people pulled it back better than others. Donald Trump did well, Biden did not. And I think Donald Trump, what we're seeing right now is maybe one of the best combinations, I think, of the two, where we're able to maybe rein ourselves in a little bit and have some defining principles, but not become isolationists in any sense of the word. And it's where I have a hard time and maybe it depends on the particular political commentator, but I have a hard time understanding if people are wanting isolationism because they have just some weird nebulous loyalty to that philosophy, or if they actively would prefer Russia and China to replace the US on the world stage.
I think the left is the latter, and I think those that are convinced of this on the right are the former. The left, look, I see no distinction, and I think there's a direct ties, we'll say indirect ties with the Democratic Party, the CCP, more so than Russia. I think philosophically, we know that the left believes in communism, socialism, and that is more important than anything else. They are ideologues. They do not believe in the principles on which this country was founded. And I think they look to China like that's how things should be done. And they completely overlook all the atrocities that are required to get to that point. They are absolutely communists. They're absolutely Bolsheviks. Then we have this element on the right that what we've spent 20 years kind of associating our intent globally and making sure that we preserve some sort of presence everywhere else for our military and or economic benefit as this occupation. Because now we have this association. It's like, for instance, regime change. All right, we take regime change now. We look at it and we say, hey, you know what? What that requires is a 20-year never-ending war. It's not even how it's done, folks. Like, that was piss poor use of our military for a lot of different reasons, and there's also a lot of different reasons, both good and bad, why we did what we did. But what regime change looks like is Venezuela. That's what we're capable of.
Right.
Regime change potentially could look like what we're doing in Iran, a short-term, high-intensity conflict that doesn't require a lot of boots in the ground. It could end up giving a bunch of weapons to the indigenous people that want to take their country back. But like when you say an endless war, and we're talking about Iran, who is a legitimate threat. They do have a nuclear weapons program. All the things that we were convinced to go to Iraq for, Iran is that. And they are a real threat. And we know what they're doing all over the Middle East.
Yeah. A lot of people have tried to ask me what my philosophy is on foreign policy. Are you more of a isolationist versus interventionalist, or restraint, deep engagement, crazy, words that people like to use in poli-sci at a university? What I come to is I'm just a guy who wants smart foreign policy. And I know that sounds so reductive, but it's really not.
Yeah.
It's like, am I for or against regime change? I guess I'm for successful regime change where U.S. servicemen don't die. You know what I mean? And so to your point, exactly, people might look at examples of like Iraq as like, oh yeah, that's exactly what regime change looks like. But I think more about Venezuela, where no one died. It was incredibly fast. People talk about taking out, nuclear programs, and they think about Iraq. But I think more about Iran, where we've only been there for 3 months so far, and there have been 13 servicemen who have been killed. And that is unfortunate. But that was also about 6 or 7 weeks ago that those happened. And there have not been any since.
Yeah.
And I don't suspect there will be any. And so that's pretty incredible. I think people have become very idealistic with all of this, and they think that they can get their ideal when it comes to foreign policy. But when you've got a conflict where you are wiping out your enemy and you have 13 servicemen who have died, that's pretty incredible, especially considering you had, some instances where there were members of your military stuck in enemy territory and they were able to get out alive.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. There's a right and wrong way to risk American lives. And I mean, the juice has to be worth the squeeze. And when I look at Iran, what I see the choices are, hey, we can leave them alone and we can allow them to continue developing the nuclear weapons program. And they can have a new, and again, we already, like, we don't even really know what's going on. We know that they have around 400 kilograms of 60% enriched uranium. But we also thought that their missiles, their ballistic missiles only had a range of about 2,500 kilometers, and come to find out it's almost double that. So, like, you better believe that there are things that both American and Israeli intelligence has missed, and we don't know what that looks like. We can either address that now, and I think that's the responsible thing to do. I think we've had a lot of administrations that have kicked this can down the road because it's not politically beneficial, or we can address it now, or we can have a real war, a genuine drawn-out war that we're fighting against a nuclear-armed Iran. And that's the last thing that we want. I mean, they're saying death to America. We already know what they've done. They're responsible for at least 600 American soldiers that were killed during the Iraq conflict with the EFPs. They're responsible for maiming probably more than double that. There's other thousands of American lives that have died with Beirut through their proxies. Like, we can't. It is so irresponsible to not address that problem. That's the way that I see that.
And this is why I think there is no mechanism for Americans to vote out a current president. There's a way, obviously, for Congress and for the Senate to do it. The reason why we vote for a commander-in-chief is because we're giving them permission to be that commander-in-chief for 4 years. And people ask me, is the Iran war right now a success? And the answer is, I don't know. It seems to be going well, in my opinion. But are there things that could happen where it wouldn't go well? Of course. And are there things that could happen where it becomes amazing? Absolutely. The answer is, I don't even know. And what really frustrates, I think that's really the only acceptable answer, if I'm being totally honest, when people say, is Iran good or not? I'd say, yeah, I think it is. But the honest answer is, I do not know yet. President Trump has permission to be commander-in-chief for another 2.5 years. And then we can decide whether we want another Republican or if we want to change parties as a nation. But what's unacceptable, and I've run into this a lot, and I ran into it with my debate with Glenn Greenwald, is people are taking propaganda coming out from Iran and using that as their source for why the U.S. is losing. That is the one opinion that is unacceptable. You could say, I think we're winning, not sure, or we could even be losing, I'm not sure. But to say we are definitely losing, and my source for why we're losing is Iran, not okay. I just don't know what else to say other than it's anti-Americanism. And I don't know how anyone could see it as anything else.
Well, and that's like, we should absolutely hold, whether it's the Trump administration or any other government figurehead up there, like, we should hold them accountable. And we should, if they're lying to us, point that out. If they're doing things wrong, we have a right to voice our opinions on those things. But what we see from media, and even more so now from social media, is just straight propaganda to undermine the Trump administration. And when you start lying about your own government, or you're pushing the propaganda from other countries like CNN, among other people, like, we've always known that's kind of taking place. They're always pushing this anti-American. But when you're taking the word of Iran over our own intelligence and our own government, that has, by the way, that's evidence-backed versus just taking their word, and you're pushing that every single time, and you're pushing all these lies against a government. I don't care if that's a Republican or Democrat or whatever else. Like, we have to stick with the truth so that the American people can make the right decision when it comes to election times. And when you're not doing that, and all you become is a propagandist pushing lies constantly because you don't like the guy in charge, you are anti-American. You are nothing more than a propagandist, and you should be called out.
Yeah. Yep.
So we have Candace now at the St. Petersburg Economic Forum. Some of the other people, and we're going to be bringing on Nish in just a few minutes after. I know Josh has to leave here. He has a hard time. He has to get out of here, but I guess give us kind of an overall picture of what you think is taking place with Candace, what people need to be aware of. What's your main concerns with all this?
Right now, I think Candace is going to be going through a time of figuring out what she wants to do next for her grift. I think if you look at her numbers right now, they are going down steadily. They're still very good for if you want to make good money. Maybe there's a world in which she would be satisfied with that and just keep going on with the Erica Kirk stuff. I doubt it. And so I think she's going to have to find a new grift. I don't know what that will be, but there's a good chance it could be something even more sinister and scary than what she's done with defaming a widow, with defaming TPUSA. And I think everyone needs to be really careful to look at what that is. It could be anything from attacking certain Christian denominations. It could be starting a youth group. Again, that is something I'm very concerned about.
Yeah.
She used to be part of Blexit, obviously. One of the predictions I've made is I think Candace may get back into some sort of activism. And the reason why, this is something I've kind of grappled with a little bit, because in terms of money, there's not a lot of money to be made there. But I do think people who are motivated by greed, that only works for so long. You can only become so rich. And I think Candace is both motivated by greed and by power. And I think there's something about her narcissistic tendencies that may want her to be speaking in front of college campuses like she used to, and debating people and talking. I'm not sure if she'll get into, debate as much, because I think she knows that she can be easily disproven. I do think she's going to start some sort of political apparatus, either surrounding the youth, maybe even a PAC to, support certain candidates. And I think people need to be very concerned about it, because it's one thing to just talk. It's another thing to actually have some sort of political ground game. If that happens, you're going to start seeing Groyper and Candace Owens candidates get a little higher in those primary polls. I still don't think they'll win, but I don't want them to even do slightly better.
Yeah, the last thing I want to talk to you about, I know you got to get out of here in a minute, but one of the things that I've seen from the very beginning, once I started investigating what Candace was doing and looking at her sphere of influence and the people that she's coordinating with, there has been coordination from the very beginning on her side. Whether we're talking about Ian Carroll, there's people like Jesse on Fire, Valhalla VFT, Baron Coleman, the Crazy Village lady, and a bunch of Trish. Like, there's all these people that from the very beginning have constantly supported Candace. To me, I think there's a lot of good evidence that there's coordination taking place behind the scenes, that they're pushing these narratives. I don't see that, even though we get accused of that. I don't see that happening on the right. And I do think that more influencers do need to get coordinated and work together to push the truth. And I don't see that taking place. What's your thoughts on that?
I completely agree. I mean, frankly, there's a lot of people who don't really want to talk to me that I'm kind of surprised about. It's not that they need to, I'm not asking for, money or anything serious or anything weird like that, but it's people maybe in our industry, because it's kind of competitive by nature. They're not wanting to collab. They're not wanting to talk. I agree with you. I think because we really are leading the conservative movement, there's, the Candace cult is on the bottom, and they know it. They've got no candidates in office. They really have no political game right now. Because of that, it makes them really want to talk and coordinate. I think for us, we're kind of on top. Sure, there's a lot of problems that we're calling out, but politically, we're doing very well. Obviously, Donald Trump is president of the United States, and we hold the Senate and the House. Because of that, I think people are being kind of lame. I think we should have group chats. I think we should coordinate. It does us no good to create the same exact content. It's not that we can't do, similar things, but I think there's ways that we could coordinate in better ways. And I think there's ways that we could even get more involved politically and really find fantastic leaders to take over, some of the people in the Republican Party who they're not Groyper, but they are Rhino. And I would love to get some of those people out and get more MAGA patriots in.
Yeah, I just think the more people that we have working on this, all of these things and pushing the truth, number one, it'll refine our messaging. It'll make sure that we're not being overly redundant. Like, there's a lot of benefits to that, and they're taking advantage of it. They understand, whether it's the left or the woke right. These are people that truly understand how messaging on social media, how it works, how to be effective. And for some reason, like, I do think there is a natural independent spirit amongst genuine conservatives. Like, I don't want help. I don't want to, I don't know. There's just, we're much more independent, and we're a little bit more scrappy, I think. And then also there's like this weird purity test too. It's like, he said this one thing I disagree with, and so I'm not going to associate myself with him. Like, these people, the other people, our enemies don't care. Like, these people will throw on a camera. They will say all kinds of weird stuff, wild stuff. They don't care if it's true. They have no shame.
Candace will do a whole video about how Nick Fuentes is a Fed. And then the next video, she'll be like praising him. I'm like, wait, you said he was a Fed, which is like horrible. So I completely agree. It's like, if we can all just agree that we're not going to be anti-Semitic, we're not going to bow down to Russia, and we're not going to lie about widows, I think we can safely be on the same team and work together.
I couldn't agree more. Well, listen, Josh, I know you got to get out of here, man. Thank you so much for coming on. Hopefully we'll do this again soon.
Absolutely.
Love to have you back on anytime. Give us kind of like a final word of encouragement to people out there.
Sounds good. Yeah, guys, I know it could be hard, especially if you're online, because there's a lot of people. I mean, if you're watching this, it means you're involved and it means that you care. And that's a good thing. I know it can be discouraging. I promise there are more of us than there are of them. But even if there weren't, even if it was just a small number of us and we were in the minority, God would be with you. And that's the message I want people to know. It does not matter how many of us there are. It just matters that we're telling the truth. And at the end of the day, if we're telling the truth, that's all we can do. And it means that we are going to be in the right eyes of God.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, that's all that matters. We're going to win. Look, we're going to win. It's just kind of what happens between here and the end. And we can either improve our lives or we can end up living in a country that is turned into a third world nation. Either way, you can figure it all out in Revelation. We win. Well, listen, Josh, thank you so much for coming on. We got Nish coming up right after Josh, but thank you, Josh. We're going to have you back on again. I know you got some things that you got to get to, but keep fighting the good fight. If you ever need anything from me, anything you tweet out, I'm trying to repost. Anything that you need from me, reach out to me. I'll help you in any way that I possibly can. So keep doing what you're doing, man.
Thank you. It's been such a pleasure. God bless you guys.
You too, buddy. Have a good one. I do want to catch up real quick before I bring Nish on. I want to catch up on some of these super chats. We're behind on those, and I want to hit those, and hopefully, we already hit that one. Just giving my normal props and donations to some obscure YouTuber. I'll be just listening for a bit. Thank you, Colton. We always appreciate your support. He never misses an opportunity to get on here and say some good, encouraging words and help us out financially. We appreciate it. Montana has great fishing and no FSB. That's a great point. Gabby Cooper became a YouTube member. Thank you, Gabby. And folks, that's one of the biggest things that you can do besides sharing our content. That's number one. Matter of fact, if you haven't done it yet, do us a favor, go down there, share our content. If you're watching this on X, YouTube, whatever it is, you can post that link to Facebook, share the content, like, comment, all those things definitely help the algorithm. Colton says, I fully believe Candace will come back and will immediately start saying how Russia is amazing. Russia is winning the war in Ukraine. All the Western countries are wasting money by supporting Ukraine. I think there's going to be a lot of that. I don't know if it's going to be quite that overt. I don't know if she's going to step right into the Ukraine. I think she's going to ease into it a little bit, but it is going to be just glazing Russia for sure. Like, it's so much better over there. Everything's better in Russia. She's never going to talk about the fact that she would never have the platform that she has in Russia. She started talking against the government, speaking out against the government. The fact is, Russia arrests and kills its dissidents left and right. There's some things that Russia does well. There's some things that I agree with, some of the things that we heard on regarding how we've had opportunities in the past to make Russia our ally, but never get it twisted that we are competing entities, and their success, a lot of times what they want to achieve means our downfall and vice versa. It's just the way the world works. And yeah, there's a lot of crossover in there. Like, there's some things that we can figure out to agree upon that would be mutually beneficial, but they look at the world very differently than we do. And we just have to understand that. All right. Now I'm going to bring on a very special guest. This is kind of a last minute thing. Nish was sending me some things via X, and I'm like, hey, you know what? I can cover this stuff, or you can come on here and you can cover it. I would love to introduce somebody new to the channel. So without further ado, Nish, thank you for coming on. Thank you for all your hard work. Let me add you to the stage. I know you have been covering a lot of stuff, and your mic is muted. I just want to make you aware of that. But if you will, take a moment and just introduce yourself to the channel.
So, hi, Gary. Thank you for having me. I am just a mom, and you guys were talking about how dangerous it is to be in the space. So yeah, it is a risky thing for me as a mom. But I also fear the Lord more than anything else. And what got me into this was Charlie passing and seeing the lies that were being spread. Everyone hates a bully. So my goal really is to do what I can while wrangling the kids and seeing what I can find after they go to bed. And no, I'm not a Mossad agent, but I do what I can. And I'm just excited that the tide, I feel like, is turning and people are getting tired of the, same old story.
No, I agree. Look, we are making a difference. And I know there are a lot of people out there that are afraid of what can and quite frankly will happen. People will get attacked, some worse than others. The other thing too is, if God is speaking to you, and I don't care if it's on this issue or another issue, sometimes you got to be Peter and jump out the boat. Look, he will protect you. And it doesn't mean that you're not going to go through hard times. It's not going to, some of the things that, if you'd have told me when I got into this, some of the things that have happened to me and my family, I would have been like, nope, I'm not doing it. Not doing it. Looking back though, now I see how much stronger of a person I am. I sit back and like, they did all these things. They said all these things about me, and guess what? I'm still here, and they're not going to stop me. And it's just made me that much more determined and understanding what's really at risk. If they're willing to do these things to stop me from speaking about their lies and to bringing people the truth, it shows me how important it is. And it shows me how important it is for them to maintain their lies. Like, that is their sacred cow. And if we're attacking that, and I'm just like, I'm thankful for all the things that have happened to me. My wife might disagree, but I'm thankful of everything that's happened. And, we're still here. And they're not as effective as they want you to believe that they are. So with that being said, Nish, you sent me some information. You were talking, and you've done some research on the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum, specifically around Candace. Feel free to, I see you got a couple of screens down here that you would like to share. Which one would you like to share first?
I mean, my biggest, I did just Substack. It took me forever to put it together, but I really, so you guys can go read it. It's really long, but it is about how it's not just a trip to Russia. And so what if she spoke at a forum? Like, the entire forum's premise, I was able to actually translate the Russian, PDF into English. And I put some screenshots of some like major topics that they're going to be covering. And it really is scary that she's even willing to, it's not very America first, okay, to sit there and be willing to speak at this forum when it is their entire mission at this forum is to how to attack and end Western, their number one spot. Russia wants to be number one as far as monetarily and just control over everything that has to do with money.
Yeah, real quick, folks, I just put the link to her Substack down in the comments, so make sure you go check that out. Also, for everybody that's watching this after it's live, I will have that in the description as well, so make sure you guys go check that out. So go support her, go read this. There's a lot of time and research. I went through most of it. I didn't get to cover it all before we went live, but there's a lot of time and research that she put into this, and I think you'll find it beneficial, to say the least.
The main one that, and we don't have that much time, but because I have to get off in about 10-15 minutes. But the main one that really got me was this one, where it talks about the rebuilding of the global financial system, and literally, like, how can we be free from the influence of Western countries? Not work with, not work along with, not grow together. How can we be free from the influence of Western countries? So I'm also very passionate about how everyone says that Israel is, the worst of the worst. And I'm not saying I agree with everything that the government has done, but the numbers just don't speak for it. If you look at, if they talk about AIPAC and everything, to me, like, it just doesn't make sense that both Israel can be in control of everything, but then can't do anything without America. Like, those two things cannot exist together. So just knowing that, and knowing that Russia, Qatar, China, all of these countries that are teaming together, they all have a, the enemy of my enemy is my friend kind of mentality. And they are all gathering together to go against the West. And who more to attack than the boots on the ground? And that is TPUSA. Like, they are the ones that are making a difference because they're actually building relationships and creating change in communities all across the country. So they see Candace attacking TPUSA putting doubt, seeding discourse into that. She's doing it just for views and clicks, but they're taking advantage of that and using it to see that, if you don't trust TPUSA, then you don't get involved and you don't make a difference. And my biggest question for Candace and to anyone that considers themselves America First is, if you want to take down TPUSA because you think they're suspicious, what are you going to replace it with? Who else in the nation is as big and powerful to continue to protect our American values? They're not there.
No, it's a great question, and they don't want anything to replace TPUSA. I mean, that's the fact. I don't even want to get into what I think motivates Candace, but there are definitely some people out there that if there is not a political organization like TPUSA that gets conservatives elected, they think the country is much better off. That's a fact. I mean, they feel patriotic. These things that are destructive to this country, just like communism, socialism, there's so many people that believe that is the way to make this country better, more fair, more equal, more prosperous. It's insane. It's never worked before. It will never work, but they want you to believe that all the same.
Yeah, we are the only thing standing that's keeping them together, right?
Agreed.
They're all using each other to take us down. As soon as we go down, then it's going to go, China has a goal, Qatar has their goal, and Russia has their goal. But I was not aware, when I did the research, I was not aware of how much Qatar invests in the education systems. I thought it was China with the communism. No, Qatar, 6.25 billion into colleges. Since 2001, why haven't I heard of this until I started researching this? Why have I just heard about China when they're just at 528 million for 2025? And then they say that, Israel is doing all this money. It's it's pennies compared to what Qatar and China are doing. And this is all propaganda. They're acting like Israel is the only one doing propaganda. No. And that's why, what I wanted to go over this really quickly, that's so much why the letter that Charlie wrote to Bibi is so important, because he was also on the same page with, hey, let's get your propaganda, your good propaganda, to be, on the forefront versus Qatar and China, because they want nothing good for us.
Nope, you're 100% correct. There's no doubt about that. When it comes to this FARA foreign spending, if I remember right, Israel's 131st or something around there. There's a lot of countries that are spending significantly amount, and we look at just China and Qatar versus Israel. I think is a great kind of cross section of what we're talking about here. We have 528 million in 2025. We have 6.25 billion in the U.S. since 2001, and 1.1 billion in 2025 versus 419 million total in data set through early 2025. I don't know when that begins, but that is not in a single year. So look, all of these countries that are clearly our adversaries, that clearly want to push agendas that are not helpful to us, are spending far more. And this is intentional. They're like, oh, don't look at us. Look at Israel. Israel's the real demon here. Israel's the cause of all the problems in the world. They're the cause of all the problems in the U.S. They control all the U.S. politicians. It doesn't even make sense, folks. The money's not there. Just like Nisha's saying, it doesn't make sense. When you actually research this stuff and don't just take everything that Ian Carroll and some of these other Jew-hating people just tell you and actually look this stuff up, you're like, that's a lie. That's a lie. And that's what I did. 6 months ago, I was on pretty good terms with Ian Carroll. I have his phone number. And I was like, maybe this guy's right. He's very convincing. He seems like a smart guy, puts out a lot of good content. And I started going through his videos and then independently researching. I'm like, he's just lying outright. So
yeah, that's a new form of journalism that's going on now, or journalism, where it's just, let me throw the lie out there and see if, someone proves me wrong. If not, I get credit for exposing the lie. And it's almost like where to the point where it's sowing so much distrust in just anything that you hear, that you're not going to believe anything. You're just going to be, and it's part of the mission, right? To get everyone so confused that they don't do anything and they don't have something to support.
Yeah, I mean, for most people that aren't going to sit there and research this, like they might hear one side of the argument, then they hear the other, and now they're just confused. And when it came to Israel, that's how I was back in September, October. I'm like, yeah, they didn't kill Charlie Kirk. I was pretty certain of that. But I'm like, I don't know, maybe all this other stuff is true. I hear people that I respect, like Tucker Carlson at the time, and some other people talking about Israel. I'm like, let me research this and figure out what is true and what's not. And that's the thing. The lie gets put out there. It takes 10 times much more time and effort to prove the lie wrong every single time. And that's what they rely on. And then if they're wrong, number one, they won't admit it. But even if they do get caught red-handed telling a lie, like, oh, I just, that was a mistake. And then they're going to put out another trope, another lie. And no one's going to hold them accountable for that. I see that time and time again. So
Gish galloping, that's what that's called.
Gish galloping 100%. It's wild to watch. It's wild to sit there. It's sad. It's sad that so many Americans are this gullible. That we've been deceived by government for sure. We've been deceived by media for sure. And they recognize that, but then they turn directly to social media and they just guzzle it down like the slop drunkards that they are. They're like, yep, this is true. This is all true. I'm not going to fact check any of this stuff because Ian Carroll, Candace Owens, or whoever told me and I like them. They're kind of funny. They're fun to watch. I'm just going to believe them.
Yeah, my heart hurts the most for fellow Christians that fall for this. And I hear them comment like Candace is doing God's work. She's, Christ is king. And like discernment needs receipts too. It's not just feelings. You can't take confidence and call it proof. Yeah. Like just because someone sounds very confident what they're saying does not mean it's proof. Just because, if it's truth, it doesn't come from suspicion.
Yeah. And there's almost always going to be clear evidence. And when everything that you tell people is based on anonymous sources and unverifiable information, the FBI would call that a clue. Like nothing they're saying is true. And they just push that. And by the way, what they allege gets proved wrong time and time and time again. And we've done it. Mm-hmm. Other people have done it. And it's like, and then they say, no, you're the liar. I'm like, I just showed you evidence. Like I couldn't be more clear that was a lie. And something that Josh mentioned earlier, he was talking about how it's one thing for people to experience this and not know what's true or not. And he was talking about it from his perspective being in Utah. I was like, I know these things aren't true. So I see it right. And look, I knew that Candace Owens was lying, but when she starts coming after me and starts intentionally lying about me and putting out false narratives and all of her other people are doing it, and you see how vicious, malicious, and they know it's not true. And by the way, there's been confirmation of many of the things she said about me that she knows isn't true, but she pushes it anyways. It just shows you how deceptive and quite frankly, how evil these people are, and that they will stop at nothing to get their agenda pushed. It's concerning to say the least.
Yeah. I mean, I have to go here, but I wanted to leave you with that Charlie's quote from BB's letter. That really is like what seals it for me, that we need to focus on the information war, just like Candace is. She's focused on the information war, except she's in Russia doing it against us. But I want to read Charlie's quote from there. Yep. Let's see.
Is it this one right here?
No, the other one.
Okay.
That's something else I didn't get to, but go ahead. I want to show this too, because it kind of shows a pattern. And like I said, discernment needs receipts. And in this letter from 2019 from TPUSA, the reason why she was fired, it talks about how she wants controversy. So nothing has changed from 2019. But yeah, the Charlie's letter is right next to that, or the summary.
Got it. Let me see. This one?
Yes. So in the letter, my favorite part was where it said, like, I love Israel and I'm defending you constantly, but what you're doing is not enough. You're losing younger Americans because your enemies are dominating the narrative online. Stop relying on people like me to carry the message, build a modern communications war room, define Israel clearly, answer the hardest accusations directly, and fight the information war with the same seriousness that you fight military threats. So essentially the heart of it is he's not just loyal to Israel. He was in panic mode to get American support for Israel because he saw what the investments of Qatar and China were doing to the young people of America and are now, I guess, reaching middle-aged wine moms.
Definitely
I'm
seems
kidding.
to be the case. No, I know you're kind of saying that in jest, but it's true. Like and men, like the amount of men, and again, a lot of these are bots, but look, I think at the end of the day, like 30% of this is artificial. The rest of it, unfortunately, is real. So, yeah, it's you could have never convinced me a year ago that this would be taking place, that so many people would be caught up in this and pushing these lies the way that they are. But listen, Nish, thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate you so much. Thank you for taking the time to research some of this stuff. Folks, we have more coming very soon. I've been staying in touch with Ryan Morrow. There's new developing information, Green Beret Nap Time, Chase Hill over there. Like, we are digging into all of this. Make no mistake, a lot more information to come out. We're going to provide evidence and proof of all of this. So you guys stay tuned for that. And Nish, I'll let you go. Thank you. I'll stay here and cover some of the other super chats. There's a couple of things that I want to address as well. But you have a wonderful day, and thank you for all your support as well.
Thank you, too. Thank you for having me.
Yep, thank you. All right, a couple of comments real quick that I want to address. Is Jen okay? And if anyone can say a prayer for me, I'd be so thankful. I was up all night and just used rescue spray to stop distress seizure. Well, we will definitely pray for you. And everybody out there should be praying for Mackenzie Moore. We hope that you are feeling better. And Jen is not feeling well today. I think she ended up going to the doctor. She's just feeling sick. She has other medical issues that definitely interrupt her life, to say the least. I don't know how much she shared on that. I don't want to overshare, but right now she's definitely feeling sick, like flu-type symptoms, coughing, things like that. So you guys keep her in your prayers. She said she'll be back this evening. If that happens, great. If she needs to take the time off, I'm sure you're listening, Jen. Take care of yourself. We can handle things, but we always love when you're here as well. Nitro says, Gary, did you see Trigger Smart's reaction to your rifle video? He seems to think it was never fired based on the safety mechanism and how scope was mounted in the image. The theories never end. So I hope that wasn't as of yesterday, because he sent me and I will share. I don't like sharing any sort of chats, but I will share this. Let me find our back and forth on that. And look, Matt is definitely prone to some theories. I'll leave it like that. I do think out of all these people, he seems to be the most honest. I'll leave it like that. But let's go back to what he's talking about, and then I'm going to read his comments. That's what I'm going to do. I don't want to show them. All right. So this is how they're constantly moving the goalpost. All right. Between me and a couple of people, Rage Bronson in particular, I talked about it before. I didn't recognize how much time I needed to spend on the false narrative that this picture in the New York Post was not a stock photo. It is not a stock photo. It was never released prior to September 11th, around 10 a.m. Eastern time, and it was first put out by the New York Post. You cannot find that picture anywhere else. I will tell you right now, because people have sent it to me and I've researched this. They went so far to try to convince you that it's a stock photo that they took that picture and they did replace pictures in other forums on Reddit and things like that. When it says like, oh, look at my Remington 700. And then they show this picture, and it's clearly not a Remington 700. And maybe I'll pull up the main picture and I will prove to you and other people out there that it's not a Remington 700. That action is clearly a Mauser action. It is clearly a Mauser action. If someone's telling you that that's a Remington 700, they're a moron. You need to ignore them. They don't know anything about firearms. It is 100% a Mauser action. So when we look at this picture, we can see that the safety right here, we can see the safety, and we can definitely tell that the safety is rotated more than 90 degrees. So what that lets me know right off the bat is that is an aftermarket low pro style safety. And specifically, it's a Bueller type safety. There's a couple of different ones out there. And we look over here. This is my Mauser that I own that, by the way, a viewer sent me for free. I thank you so much. And I feel terrible right now. I always forget your name and I apologize. I will fix that. But anyways, we look at the standard Mauser. This is the flag safety. All right. And this rotates to go from fire to go from safe, which this is in the safe position, to go to fire. We have to rotate it 180 degrees. And this is a large safety, and we have a low pro mounted scope. It's going to get in the way. The scope is not going to allow the rotation of the safety to get to a fire. So that's what these morons, that's what these ignorant people are saying. Like, oh, I see the safety over here. The problem is we can clearly tell from this picture that is rotated far past 90 degrees. And you can see it from the side view. This is a standard Mauser. From the side view, it looks nothing like what we see up there where it says safety clearly rotates past 90 degrees. That's center middle, upper center picture. Then we see this Bueller style safety, and we look at that and we can tell that that is exactly what we're seeing right there. That's what it looks like. So this is proof that we have a different safety installed. And what this low profile Bueller type safety does is that it goes from this position and it rotates 70 degrees upward, not coming anywhere near the scope. And we can go from fire, we can go from safe to fire, and it would still clear the scope that you see there in this picture. There is some things wrongly set up about this rifle. That means nothing to me, folks. I do this for a living. We install scopes and optics professionally. We run long range courses professionally. And the first thing that we do on day one, which is a Friday, is we set people's rifles up because they come in. Like, I look at some of these rifles far worse than this, and I'm like, how have you been, how long have you had this set up? Like years. They just didn't know. They threw their rifle together. They put the scope in the rings. They don't understand how to set up a rifle correctly. This is nothing abnormal. And it's definitely not some proof of some conspiracy. It's ridiculous. So that's proof right there. And then I will tell you that Matt from Trigger Smart contacted me, and the first thing he said, he sent a Timney Bueller style low pro safety selector for a Mauser 9596, and he just sent that picture. It was a listing for that particular safety for sale. Looks like it came from Midway. He said maybe this is the one here, and I want to get the date right on this. This was Saturday, May 30. So this was this past Saturday. He said, maybe it's this one. He says Mauser 9596. I'm not sure they also do a 98 version. They do. All right. They do. I said, yes, they have one for the model 98. It's the most popular model of the Mausers, by the way. They may work across all models. I'd have to look at the differences between the cocking and safety mechanism. I'm not sure if that exact same model of aftermarket safety will work across all models of Mauser. I suspect that they do, but I'd have to look and check that out. He said, okay, thought so. So theoretically, this or a similar aftermarket safety could have been used for the crime with a shorter wing and angle, which could have made it possible to use properly with the scope. Definitely important info. It also appears the scope position in the front ring could have been moved or damaged during the escape, maybe from the jump down. Thanks, Matt. And then I said, did you see my post on it? I sent him the exact post with this, and then he replied, yeah, that past 90 degree position is a dead giveaway for aftermarket conversion. Good catch. So that was the information that he and I shared, and I sent him this post. So hopefully he's corrected that. And that's the other problem with so much of this, folks, is like people will put this information out, and even when they're corrected, they never go back and undo the damage that they've done. Like, number one, get it right the first time. That's important. We're all going to make mistakes because I've gotten things wrong for sure before. But what I don't do is, if I do get something wrong, I'm going to correct the record. On the rare occasion that happens, I try to, nobody wants that. Nobody enjoys that. Nobody likes going back and saying I'm wrong. But you know what? You got to be a man and do that. And the problem is these people put this information out. It gets a lot of views, and then the correction gets almost no views. So it's a real issue. So hopefully he has, I don't know, done something and corrected the record there. Everyone, don't let Candy split us more. I only trust around 10 people, and Stevens is a good one. Hopefully you reconsider Fax Me is a good one. I've said what I've said on this. This is something that we're going to handle behind the scenes. I agree with you. Follow your destiny. I agree with you. Like, we can't allow these dumb things to cause an issue, right? We just can't. We can't allow this to fracture us. We can't allow a space where we don't forgive anybody on our side if they get something wrong or they use a tactic that they shouldn't have, whether it's promotion, whether it's whatever, right? Because we sure can't divide the candy cult. I mean, Candace threw Ian Carroll right under the bus with this whole vet bro thing. And if you guys are following back to Fort Huachuca, she basically said that he was involved in this, and yet he still defends her to this day. So, like, we can't allow little things divide us, and we can't have this purity test that no one can pass. We just can't, because that's what they want. They want us to, like, today I spent over an hour dealing with this whole thing, this controversy. And while I was trying to prep for the show, that took away time from you. It took away time from fighting the real enemy, which are all these people trying to trick Americans to do things that aren't in the best interest. So that's where we're at. I'll hit a couple of live, see if I have any comments real quick, and we will try. Number one, definitely don't forget to hit the like button, share, become a member, all those things. If you don't mind me asking, what were the accusations? I really like Stephen. I definitely trust him. All right. So the accusations, I'll hit this just so we're clear. The accusation is that Stephen was essentially talking about Candace Owens. And then he pulls out, this is the Cliff Notes version of this. Then he pulls out a cease and desist letter and alludes to the fact, which I did watch this, it definitely gave the perception that it was from Candace Owens. That, you know, this whoever sent this to him was from Nashville. You know, he was very defiant about it, saying, you know what, they're not going to silence me. And I think every other viewer would reasonably come to the conclusion that that was from Candace Owens. And then somebody took him to task on that and essentially said, was that from Candace Owens? And eventually he came out and admitted that it wasn't. I feel that was deceptive. I feel like that was deceptive content farming. Doesn't mean that Stephen's a bad guy. It doesn't mean that everything else that he does is incorrect. I think there should have been some people that reached out to him that clarified it, maybe gave what I would have done is say, hey, look, Stephen, I don't think this is the right way to go about this. You know, content farming is very common across, like, that's what gets views, whether you're talking about really deceptive. I try not to use overly deceptive or clickbait titles and thumbnails. I still get accused of that. But I try to avoid doing that. I look at that thumbnail as like, am I completely distorting what's going on here? And if I'm saying yes, because that's what gets you clicks and views. Like, I try to tell content creators this all the time. Like, you got to have good thumbnails. You got to have good titles. Those things matter. Those things matter as much or more sometimes than the content that you're putting out. And I'm still learning this. And then there's people that are really good, that are really big creators. They will lie about the thumbnail. They will lie about the title. They will lie about the content in there, and they get millions of views. All right. There is a clear path to success on social media, and that involves lying. And I'm not going to do that. Will I play around a little bit with that? Yeah, I will. Like, I don't know, just the last video I put out, if I pull up YouTube, I said, is Tyler, matter of fact, we'll go to this and I'll show it to you guys. And this is like as far as I'm going to go to push that envelope. And I don't think it's deceptive. And I'll tell you why I do that. Let me throw this up here. I'll give you some of my thoughts on this a little bit. Let me add this. Let me go here first. We're going to share this tab instead. I'm going to pull this other one. This is when I miss Jen. She makes this much easier. Does this for me. All right. So if we look at this for instance, on my lives and no, it's videos. So the last I said, is Tyler Robinson a patsy being framed for the Charlie Kirk assassination? Why are they lying? All right. I am vague on that. And why am I doing that? Number one, I've already had people in the comments that clearly didn't watch the videos. Like, you're no better than Candace. Like, you're just pushing the same thing Candace was. That was definitely Tyler's. Like, they didn't watch the video. But what I'm trying to do is like, yeah, I want to reach our audience, but I also want to reach people that are following Ian Carroll, that are following VFT. And I want them to, it's a little bit of a bait. Like, this is a question being asked. And I want them to get in there and realize the truth. Like, we have to put some things out that appeal to these people. I don't think that's being deceptive. I think that's just good marketing. Some people would disagree on that. And there's lots of, I've had people create thumbnails and titles for me that I'm like, no, that's too far. And even if we get more views, at what cost? Even if we double our subscribers, at what cost? Like, integrity is important in this space. So that's kind of how I feel about all this. I want to have a conversation with Stephen. I haven't talked to him directly. I've kind of been told from both sides of what's going on with this, and I want to be fair to him. And it, whatever. It just should have been handled differently. Simple as that. This should have all happened behind the scenes. We don't have time for this infighting. We have to be cohesive. We have to be a team. It doesn't mean that we're going to push lies, and it doesn't mean that, if somebody feels like most of these creators that I've had on this show have my phone number, and they can reach out to me, and I want them to. Like, they feel like I'm doing something wrong or deceptive, or they have questions about what I'm doing, contact me directly. Let's have that conversation, and maybe if I'm wrong, I'm going to try to correct myself. Maybe in what usually is, especially when we're talking about super chats and we're text going back and forth with this Twitter, like, so much is lost, so much context is lost, and you're not even being fair to the person that you're accusing off the bat. And then on top of that, all that trash is out there, and let's say you got it wrong, or there's some context we're missing, or whatever it is. Now that is ammunition for everybody that is already up against us. We're fighting the world already. We don't need that. So there's right way to do this and the wrong way to do this. And part of this goes back to what I was talking with Josh. I keep wanting to call him Jack Carr. Joshua about, like, we need more cooperation. We need more collaboration. And what we don't need to be is at each other's throats. And if somebody makes a mistake, there should be some room for forgiveness. And it's on them to go out there and do the mea culpa and say, you know what? I was wrong in this. I'm not saying that that's what Pax me or Stephen should have done, because I want to hear from him before I make that conclusion. But even if it is, it's like, if I have the conversation with him and he's like, yeah, that was probably deceptive. Okay. Hey, don't do that again. Get back out there, get back in the fight, buddy. Good game. Slap on the butt. Let's go. That's how I feel about it as of now, from what I know. So I've talked about that more than I plan to, for sure, but you guys want to know, and I'm going to be honest with you. If you want to attract candy landers, just title every video you're absolutely right. Extra million viewers are why Israel is poisoning your kids. Exactly. Why the synagogue of Satan is our worst mortal enemy. And by the way, you'll start getting picked up by the Russian, Iranian, and Chinese bots as well. Start pushing that stuff for sure. Like, being successful on YouTube is not that hard. Like all you got to do is find someone that has lots of views and just mimic exactly what they're doing. Doing social media with integrity, you're always going to be behind the power curve, and I'm okay with that. And folks, I mean it. Like, I don't care if I go down to 10 subscribers. Nothing I say or do is going to change. But I also want to be the best that we can possibly be. And whether it's production value, whether it's the messaging, whether it's getting better at sitting up here and talking and presenting things, I'm always trying to improve on that. And I know everybody else that I know in the space is doing the same thing. So that's where we're at with all this. Let me see if there's any other. I follow Shady Lady, but she can be a little much sometimes, even in live stream chat. She accused others of faking things too, I believe, either on this channel or Jay Witts. I'm so sorry for your loss. Lori Matthew, David Webb saying, I'm so sorry for your loss. Someday we will all see each other again. God bless you. I don't know what exactly happened, but Lori, if you lost someone or something, or pet or whatever else, I'm sorry I missed that chat. I apologize, but we're praying for you. They have the right to support Satan if that's what they want. America is still free. Yeah, and look, we have such a better message. Like, we have the MAGA message, right? Make America great again. That's what we're trying to do. That's where this movement started. That's why Trump resonated with so many people, is because it's a positive message. But what we can't do is we just can't sit back and allow people to lie and to trick people, whether it's on social media. Because look, the impacts of this, there's so many people that have never watched Candace Owens. But these are people that are diehard fans of her, that go to work, wherever else in their social circles, and they do talk about what's going on. Like, Eric, you will not believe what Erica Kirk did. Candace uncovered the fact that Erica Kirk had foreknowledge, was involved in this. Like, this stuff resonates so much further than just the people on social media. It permeates our society in ways that we don't really understand or can't comprehend. So that's why this stuff is so important. That's why you do have to address these things head on. You can't just sit there and starve the grift. It's not going to work. It doesn't work with anything else. It sure isn't going to work on this, especially when they're so much better at social media and manipulating people than, you really can't manipulate people with the truth, right? But it's easy to manipulate people if you're telling lies. And when you're constantly putting out things like, Tyler was never on the campus, there's no way to get on the roof because you'd have to be Spider-Man. All of the things that have been inserted in this and have muddied the waters from the very beginning, it creates a false suspicion, an artificial suspicion that should have never existed. Because if none of that had ever happened and we just present like the FBI and the Utah SBI, and we now have the information that we had without all these confusing and counter narratives being pushed that are just flat false, and most of them by now have just been proven false. There wouldn't be all these people that believe that this is some grand conspiracy that's happening across multiple agencies, hundreds of people involved. It would sound ridiculous, but because this has happened through incrementalism, what is completely illogical and completely nonsense now sounds reasonable. It's conditioning. Israel needs to worry about Israel. China needs to worry about China. And if we follow that line of thought, the United States just needs to worry about the United States. Unfortunately, that's just not how the world works. It isn't. I wish that was the case. Ryung. I wish that's how it worked, but it doesn't work that way. We are all constantly interfering, and by the way, our allies as well. Look, there's nobody in Europe. There's not a single government in Europe. The leftist people, the globalists that control Europe, that the people behind the EU that have destroyed Europe, they don't want Donald Trump to succeed. Just ideologically, they're so opposed to everything that he does and believes. And then the kicker for them is that the United States is so dominant. They hate that. They hate that. Brooke and Road just became a member. Thank you, Brooke. We appreciate you. And we appreciate everybody else out there supporting our channel and is on our team. And I appreciate all of the content creators out there that are pushing the truth. And we need to support one another. We need to collaborate better. We need to be more strategic. We need to be smarter than these people that we're up against. There's room for success for everybody. Like, we can't get into this overly competitive mindset where it's like, you know, if this person succeeds, then I don't succeed. There's room for everybody. And the way that we're going to get there is through teamwork, not through division and strife and some of the things that I see there that people are attempting to, the enemy is attempting to, and I mean Satan himself, attempting to put upon us. So we just got to be smart. We got to be coordinated, organized. We got to do all those things if we're going to win. Got to get serious. This is not individuals trying to survive. It's us fighting for our country together. That's how this is going to work. Well, listen, folks, I appreciate you tuning in tonight, folks. In 2 hours, less than 2 hours. All right, it's 5:11 at 7 p.m. Eastern time. We're going to have Nate Vance on. We're going to do the most comprehensive deep dive into 30-06 and all the ballistics that have surrounded the Charlie Kirk incident. And I hope you tune in. And especially if you're someone that thinks that 30-06 is impossible for, you know, the terminal ballistic outcome to have taken place, i.e. no exit wound. If you believe that, please come watch this. We will field questions. We will try to be as comprehensive about this. We're going to show you all kinds of good information. Join us, have an open mind, and we will definitely take any sort of critical questions our way. Be happy to. I look forward to it. Listen, folks, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for all your love and support. Keep fighting for the truth. And until next time, stay armed, stay ready. We'll talk to you soon.